I want to invite everyone to answer this question, sort of reflecting on the feminine principle and, the Sophia Century in bringing women to the table in co-creative roles, and also honoring the masculine and feminine within ourselves and society. Within each of the specific spaces that you are within, how do you see the role of... I want to invite everyone to answer this question, sort of reflecting on the feminine principle and, the Sophia Century in bringing women to the table in co-creative roles, and also honoring the masculine and feminine within ourselves and society. Within each of the specific spaces that you are within, how do you see the role of masculine and feminine, and what needs to happen to shift that dynamic that we can all be aware of, so that when we're in different rooms, we can sort of be aware of our own masculine and feminine, but also just the dynamics of even just male, female, or dominating a conversation versus allowing more space. And one example I'll just share that I learned recently was, for every layer of privilege you have to take one breath before jumping in and sharing. Because in workshops and meetings, you'll notice that oftentimes it's the same voices who are more comfortable to jump in, and one breath can allow somebody else who maybe doesn't get to share, jump in and share. So for every layer of privilege you have, just take a breath. So within each of the spaces that you're specifically within, how do you see the dynamics of masculine and feminine playing out, and what tips do you have?
I think the original story that you started off with was so powerful, with the bird with the two wings. I think in the masculine energy, they're hunters, right? And so in terms of that, they're very laser focused. They're super good at execution, and once they have their eyes on the target, that is it, and they're gonna go for it. They're gonna bring it back home. For us on the feminine side, I think we are about community, about holding down the fort and building together, not just a single target, but literally how the entire infrastructure is held on the feminine side. So with that, I think that in boardrooms, I think we need to be able to bring in more women to make those decision-making, pivots, to make sure that everything, before we set our eyes on that target and setting that, to go full speed with our capital and our manpower, to make sure that that is actually the target that we're going for. And so with that, I want to just kind of close with one last thought, which is, I had to unlearn the belief that empathy makes you weak. And in truth, I think it makes you unforgettable. So we need to lead with that and be able to be at the decision makers table. Thanks.
I love that, the unlearning, so important. I think actually more than learning, we have to unlearn. And you mentioned it as well with the deconditioning. And so, yeah, thank you. And feel free to add anything or share what you want to unlearn. And then we'll go through that quickly, and then hopefully we have like 2 minutes to have a couple questions.
All right, I'll try to keep this short. For women, I want to implore you, do it scared. What I mean by that is, as a business owner, I get resumes all the time from men and women. For the women, they invariably beat 100% of the requirements I have listed for a position. They're far beyond it before they even decide to apply. And for men, and this is not a dig at men at all, typically they got about 50 to 75% of the requirements, and they come in, they say, yeah, I don't have this, but I can do it. I'll figure it out. So for women, you need to step up. You need to share your voice, because you are qualified. You're great just the way you are. And you have, as you had spoken earlier, you have the superpowers of empathy and communication. Use that. A lot of people decide, I will do this when I get more confidence. When I get more confidence, that's when I'm going to get up on stage. I'll tell you right now, I hate public speaking, okay? You don't get confidence by waiting. You get confidence by doing. The more you do it, the more reps you do it, the more confident you get, and then you get out there. But the world needs your voice.
Yeah.
I have two thoughts on this. I I think I want everyone to find small ways to change the bias paradigm every single day. And I'll give you an example. Because my husband laughs at me because I do it all the time. I was walking through a Target 6 months ago, and I'm walking through the kids aisle. The kids aisle drives me crazy, by the way. I was walking through the kids aisle. I know, we're gonna go fast, I'm sorry. I was walking through the kids aisle, and they had the two, like the kids' couches. There was a pink one, and there was a blue one. And the girl one, the pink one, had a pillow on it that said love and hope. And the blue one had a pillow on it that said have an adventure. And I stood in front of it and I shook my head and I was like, I'm so angry. And my husband was like, oh God, what is she gonna do? And I walked up and I switched the pillows. And I was like, God, that's so much better. Like, let's not overdo the gender bias, please, Target. And I switched the pillows. What does that do? It completely changes the conscious and unconscious bias of those two couches, instantly. It's a small paradigm shift in Target. Now, every other person who walks by those couches is gonna have a different reaction to those two couches. You can do those little things every single day. Anything you see, you can just change the paradigm of what those things do. And I find it everywhere. You can do it everywhere, every single day. The second thing, I have a strong, firm belief that we could change the world in one generation. And I'll tell you why. I have a 6-year-old little boy. He's wonderful and he's rowdy. I do a lot of investing in women's health. I talk about women's body parts all day long. Vulvas, all the things, right? My son knows these words. He's gonna walk into first grade in the fall and he's going to say vulva. And I'm gonna get a phone call from his first grade teacher. Miss Sayani, he said this word. I'm gonna say, that's great, he knows what it is, right? Also in my house, the work is the work. There's dishes, there's laundry, there's all trash to take out. My husband and I just do the work. Somebody does the cooking, somebody does the trash, somebody does the laundry. It's not gendered work. We just do the work. My son helps whoever's doing the work with the work. For him, it's not gendered. If all of us did that in our houses, our children would grow up with a completely different baseline. We could all do that in our houses, and our children would grow up with a different baseline. One generation.
Yeah. Oh, I so agree. One thing about some of this communal practices is the beauty of really having communication. Deeply, what I strive to push or place up on the altar for them to see is knowing that we all have the right to speak how we feel. And it's a privilege to watch some of the men in the community really listen to the women, and knowing that we're not separate or better, that we have the right to speak. And the beauty of them being so ready to listen to the strong women that I have in my community is that they lift us up to a place where we are 100% safe in our feminine and masculine, and we have the right to speak our mind and do all the things that they can do. We just proved that this last weekend by women carrying sand from the creek up to the top of this little mountain where we're building a temazcal, or a sweat. And nobody had jobs, men and women. Everyone challenged themselves to do all the jobs. And men cook, women cook. Everybody is creating, the outside of gender roles. And that is something that is even breaking in the indigenous cultures, because some of them still practice that's a women's job, that's a men's job. But again, we have to come together and have the conversations and teach our children and let each other know at any age that it's okay to be outside of this gendered idea role and do the job, just like she said. I love that. So to me, there is no masculine, feminine. I honestly see myself as understanding the two-spirit idea and wanting to do anything and everything that this life has to offer.
Thank you. Wow. I'll just end on this note, but I'm so grateful for the wisdom that everybody here has shared. And I think especially with this last question, you bring up this idea that paradigm shifts actually live within us. They start within us. And I've been using this practice now that every time I go to do something that's like the familiar way, so like what should my business model look like? How should I structure my day? How should I split household chores? I ask myself, well, why am I defaulting to that? And if I'm defaulting to that, if that's the familiar, it's probably actually a paradigm shift that has to shift within me so that I can live it and then invite other people to do that as well. So how do we live the internal paradigm shift? And yeah, thank you again to all of you for the powerful wisdom that you shared. And yeah, I see you and honor the different parts of the puzzle that really make, you know, humanity and women whole and together. So thank you.